Alright everyone, welcome to the Season 6 Masteries page for Gnar. This is going to be the basic video for the Masteries that you would take on Gnar. There's basically two sets of pages, or two trees that you're going to go into. Typically, you're not going to go into all three for Gnar in most of the cases, but with Masteries are very situational, so it's based off of mainly your playstyle and then the matchup that you're playing into. The most common one that I suggest people to go is 12 in Ferocity and 18 in Resolve. Gnar likes to go generally tanky, and he relies more on his base damages than anything else, especially going later into the game, and he uses a lot in the Resolve tree, so it's always good, especially if you're learning a new champion, to kind of go with the more safe route rather than the ham sandwich route, as I say. So the first one is going to be this Masteries page. You can take a look at it. 12 in Ferocity. We'll go through the basics of it, and then I'll have another video with more of the in-depth of every single mastery and what benefits Gnar and what doesn't, and why you take certain masteries. Basically, when you go 12 in Ferocity, the first one you can go either in. Attack speed is better for last hitting, whereas the ability damage is better on Gnar or later in the game when you're going to be mainly trying to use Gnar in team fights. So you get more ability damage since you're not going to be auto-attacking as much when you're Gnar because of your casting animations. They're so long. You've got Double-Edged Sword and Feast. Gnar's half of a ranged champion. Double-Edged Sword's really only good on things that, or champions rather, that like to duel and are not team fighting, and they have to be melee for it to be worthwhile. So Gnar typically doesn't do any of those things, so we stay away from Double-Edged Sword. And Feast is really good because you get more sustain in lane. It's a little bit easier for most players to use this Feast versus last season, where you had to actually get every single last hit for it to be more efficient than this season. All you got to do in this season is last hit one creep every 25 seconds, and you get the full benefits of the Feast Mastery. And then you've got either attack damage per level and ability power per level, or you're going to have the lifesteal and spell vamp. I prefer going the safer route and having more sustain, especially in top lane, where it's typically a battle of attrition, so you want to be able to stay in lane longer, and especially with Gnar's range, just kind of bully out the opponent, poke him down. Natural Talent will only give you about 10 attack damage, I think 10 attack damage, 15 AP at level 18. Which is barely noticeable at all. It will help you here and there, and it could win you some trades, but overall this is going to be more useful for more of the game. And then if you're going to go 12 in Ferocity, you can either choose between Bounty Hunter and Oppressor. Basically, Bounty Hunter is going to be more for a jungler because you get increased damage for every single unique enemy champion you kill. So if you kill all 5 of the different enemies on the other team, you can get basically a permanent 5% increased damage. It's harder to do that in top lane, so unless you're roaming like crazy, you're not going to be able to make the best out of this mastery as much. Oppressor is going to be good on pretty much anybody with CC, and Gnar's got a lot of crowd control. He's got a slow or a stun on every single ability besides his auto attacks, so it is really good if you have this, especially if you're going with Frozen Mallet, because then you have permanent CC on any ability, any damaging ability that you use plus auto attacks. So really good. And then your the rest of these are okay, but you typically don't want to go into there because then you lose a lot out of this tree, which is the Resolve tree. This is typically for your tankier champions and your support champions. Here we have Unyielding, which gives you 5% more armor and magic resist, or you get 2 health per second with recovery. Either of them's good. And Yielding's better later in the game or during mid game. It'll give you more for your a better bang for your buck mid game, whereas recovery is better for a harder lane. So if you're gonna go in a hard lane, you can take either. But typically take this for most of the time, since you do build a lot of resists early for those mid-game fights that you want to force. And then you've got Explorer or Tough Skin. Tough Skin's only good in the jungle, so neutral monster attacks. Doesn't work on melee or in the lane creeps. And then 2 less damage from champions. Not that great, really. It is good into if you're in a tougher lane. So take this if you're in a tougher lane and you want to survive. But most of the time you'll take Explorer because it will be more useful mid and late game when you're doing a lot of fighting around the Baron area, or if you want to roam or something like that. The next one you're looking at is Veteran Scars, and then you've got Runic Armor. Runic Armor is going to give you more healing and lifesteal and such. You don't build much lifesteal. You do have some decent healing in Mega Gnar, but it's, again, 8% sounds like a lot, but it's 8% of another percentage. So usually you only have 10% lifesteal, so 8% of whatever 10% lifesteal is. Let's say you buy Vamp Scepter for some strange reason, you will have a... if you have 100 AD, you're going to get 10 life back, and then 8% of 10 is going to be less than 1. So it's not, honestly, insanely great. It's better for somebody who's going to have a shield, or if you're going to use Mega Gnar a lot. So it's not terrible, but you'd be better off earlier in the game using the extra health. It compounds with the rest of your resists and stuff that you typically buy. So, and then you're going to have these 2 choices. Either of them are good. Insight gives you basically your summoner spells are going to be up at a much quicker rate, so you can teleport more often, you can flash and make plays more often. It's more of a playmaking type of mastery to take, so I typically suggest to take this. Now you can take this into Perseverance, which gives you more health regen in a tougher lane. So if you know you're going to have a hard time, you can switch it over. You'll get a lot more regen when you're low. Mini Gnar's regen's really bad, so anything that can help Mini Gnar's regen it will be very good for you. And then Mega Gnar's got really good regen as far as health per second, so the increased health when you're low, you can bait out quite a few things, especially if you have your ult up. And then you've got Legendary Guardian or Swiftness. This is situational again. Masteries are very situational. Most of the time you can just be safe by taking this, because in a team fight you'll get an extra 15 armor and magic resist, which is pretty dang good if you're in the middle of a team fight and you go in and try to ult somebody. So it just makes you tankier for those mid game and later in the game team fights where you want to get that big 5-man Gnar ult. The tenacity and slow resist, 15% tenacity is really good, especially if they're going to be a very CC heavy comp, and you know that it's a lot of AoE. So if they have Leona, a bunch of other champions that are going to lock you down for a long period of time, so Swiftness is good in that situation. And then you have a few choices here. Grasp of the Undying is actually one of my favorite masteries for somebody that is ranged. And Gnar, early in the game, Mini Gnar is ranged, and you can abuse this. Every 4 seconds, you basically steal away life and deal damage to the enemy champion. That you can basically vamp up, and also it's almost a little mini Thunderlords, but it's not nearly as impactful as far as damage goes. But it does keep you in lane longer, and in top lane, any sort of way to keep you in lane and punish out your opponent is really good. So Grasp of the Undying, especially later in the game, because Gnar builds a lot of health, and it's 3% of your maxed health that you get back. So later in the game, it'll be very good, especially since you do stay in team fights longer. You can just steal a bunch of health during these big team fights. So it's very good. You've got Strength of the Ages. I don't typically like this mastery most of the time because you have to farm it up, and you get basically bonus health from killing large monsters and siege minions, but it takes a while. You have to kill, like, I think it's 15 large monsters and siege minions to get the permanent health. But it can be useful, but it's just not as consistent. And then you got Bond of Stone, which is really good damage reduction. It's 4%, and then 6% of the damage that enemy champions taken from the nearest ally is dealt to you instead. So if the enemy champion, if somebody like Zed or something goes on to your AD carry or something like that, it will mitigate some of that damage and put it onto you. So it's good in situations where there's a lot of assassins and things where they want to go on your backline and kill them rather than these big AoE comps that are trying to just kill everybody with wombo combos and things like that. So if they're not going to focus you and they're going to focus your teammates, but you want them to focus you for any reason, Bond of Stone is really good. But I still prefer Grasp the Undying.